whatever you've gone through, whatever shit, as you look back, that you stepped in, was all meant to help empower the person you are today to help those that you once were.
Welcome to The Growth Shift, the podcast where we unlock the psychological and strategic blueprints of predictable growth. In every episode, we dive into the critical turning points of industry leaders and uncover how they're leveraging AI not as a shortcut, but as the strategic force for their next growth shift. Today, we dive in with a leader who is defining the future of their industry. Today's guest, Matt Toresco, brings a rare blend of personal resilience and industry transformation to the world of healthcare. After a life-altering neck injury during his time as a collegiate lacrosse player, Matt spent nearly 2 decades navigating the healthcare system as both a patient and a professional. That journey led him to found Archo Advocacy, where he's on a mission to elevate the role of patient advocacy from an overlooked expense to a strategic driver of value for pharma and biotech companies. As a TEDx speaker with over 1 million views, Matt's story is a testament to the power of listening to the patient's voice, not just for better outcomes, but for real business impact. His insights challenge us to rethink how healthcare companies connect with those they serve and why that shift matters for the future of the industry. Matt, welcome to The Growth Shift.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
It's great to have you on the show. You've got quite the story. Matt, you broke your neck.
Yes.
Not many people can say they broke their neck and survived.
Yep.
And very fewer can say they broke their neck, survived, and are now leading to change in industry based off of how they were impacted by that experience themselves.
Yeah.
So you were a collegiate lacrosse player. You broke your neck playing lacrosse.
Yeah.
And
Ground ball.
your whole world was turned over. I mean, tell us a little bit about that foundational journey and how it impacted not just your life, but perhaps your mentality as well.
Yeah, I don't know if it shifted my mentality until much later. The word that you nailed in my intro is resilience. And it's one that I've kind of clung to for a long time. I grew up as a twin brother. So my parents had us in a household that was just compete against one another. And honestly, there were great outputs for both of us, having competed our entire lives. My twin brother runs his own hedge fund in Hong Kong. I'm running my own business here in the US. But it was always about resilience. We honestly went for a 4-year period where he would do something that needed a surgery, then I would do it. And I think our parents, by the end of those 4 years, were very happy to know that we were not being injured anymore. I, unfortunately, couldn't play sports anymore, but I think they were happy about that too. And I think it's why I have daughters. But resilience is always something that from a very young age, we experienced injuries when we were young. I remember, the good old Italian family adage of just rub some dirt on it to, look how far it is from your heart. When we broke fingers, or I can't tell you the number of bones I've broken. It's over 30 in my body, but it was you just kept going. And I think that served me well. In some ways, it didn't. When it comes to your own healthcare journey and knowing when to speak up about things and to speak up about what's bothering you. But when it comes to business and running your own small business, it's going to be a grind. And no one's going to give you the pat on the back or the great job, right? It's all on you and the way that you measure success for yourself.
Matt, you alluded to the fact there that sometimes resilience can be a negative thing, right? Especially if you're an athlete, you're breaking bones, you're not recovering, and all these things as well. But that's something that you recognize that many people don't, right? They kind of get stuck in that headstrong position of, I will just push through this pain and business and life and whatever it is. How do you think you were able to identify that negative side that resilience can have and overcome that?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily say that I was able to identify it because I'm a headstrong person and thought that I knew everything in this healthcare space. And it was brought to me by a therapist of mine, of all things, and stories I shouldn't tell and all of these wonderful routes that we can go down. But my therapist, I remember being on a call with him and he basically uttered these words that have stuck with me, which was, so I have this other patient and I'm really not supposed to tell you this, but I think it'd be good for the two of you to meet. And, I was 18 years into a chronic pain journey, trying to figure out why I was still in pain for my neck that, should have been fixed, but wasn't. And this guy was a chiropractor, which is the last words you want to hear as someone who's broken their neck. Stay away from me. I'm good. Don't adjust anything. But he was a patient advocate as well, which means, he's willing to come alongside of other patients, help them understand what's out there, what's been working or not working for them. And it was that guy that taught me, all right, some of those things you're looking past or putting in your rear view are the exact signals that your body's trying to tell you that you're ignoring. And it was through him and the way that I had seen healthcare in general treat patients that I was able to formulate my own hypothesis on the best ways to approach healthcare. And to be quite frank with you, really what that is that no one in healthcare sees the patient as their customer. It's the only economic industry that doesn't see their end user as their customer. And that makes things really difficult to try to assess performance. How are you supposed to know how well you're doing if you still don't know who your customer is?
How did we get here? I mean, how is that even possible?
That's probably a 10,000 page textbook and 20-year conversation. How did we get here? We got here by focusing on the finances of it and looking past the people sitting across from the table from us, which is why I love podcasts and the whole premise of it. Let's just sit down and have a conversation, and where it goes, we'll let it take us. Because of a push towards numbers and a push towards quality metrics, and all of these perceived ways of measuring our performance in business from a healthcare perspective, that has gotten us here, which has ran us straight past the patient, past the people that we're treating on a daily basis, past the reason that we even have a business to begin with, right? Though we may not see the patient as our customer, without the patient, there is no business. There's no hospital. There's no physician. There's none of it. So that's what I've been trying to get both the industry and, meaning pharma and biotech companies, but also hospitals, health systems, large physician practices to understand is we have to slow down and listen to that voice of wisdom that's on the other side of the table. And oh yeah, you might not think it's the voice of wisdom, but it is.
And this is, of course, a big part of what you're doing with Archo Advocacy today. But before we get to the business, I want you to share a little bit more about how it is that you developed your unique approach, your mindset, your understanding of business today.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the growth shift moment, right? You've learned a lot, you've been through a lot. But when we look at what has been the most impactful occurrence that allowed you to think and approach business in this way, what was it?
The biggest shift for me was in 2022, preparing for surgery that I didn't know when was going to take place. I saw a doctor in late 2022 after being recommended to see him by this chiropractor. Ultimately, the chiro slowed down enough, got enough information. I mean, he went out and he called every surgeon I had had surgery with before, from the guys who had done my ACLs a couple of times to, I had at that point 10 major surgeries done. And he had collected all of the surgical notes for every surgery I had had done at all the different hospitals across 5 different states. So he made sure he had all of the information, which unfortunately not too many physicians will do. They'll treat what they have in front of them. So he went ahead and did that. He did one extra procedure, which is, well, the body moves. Novel thinking. But if you think about all imaging that we have in medicine today, it's all don't move, stay really still, sit in this really loud MRI or CT machine. But if you flinch, we're going to have to redo it. Well, he had a machine in his office that was called a DMX. No, not the 90s rapper. A moving X-ray machine. It's the simplest way to think about it. It creates a video X-ray of you actually moving. And that's where he was able to see things that I had completely put in my rear view, which was this creaking noise that was coming from my spine. in my neck that sounded like old wooden steps. Anytime I looked to the right, any other direction, up and down on the right hand side, for some reason, it was only when I looked right. He got me in touch with, in his words, the only person I would let touch my spine in your case. This doctor up in Manhattan. I'm down in the Charleston, South Carolina area. I'm lucky enough to know that I could go get surgery in New York, and that would be okay by my insurance. Now, I had to fight them on things, and that's all about why I do what I do. But I got my initial appointment with him October of 2022, and he said, listen, I can fix you, which I had heard before. But this guy walked in with 6 fellows in tow. So I knew something was different. He said, I can fix it, but you need to be off of pain medicine for 6 months. Now, I had been on Oxycontin and anabolic steroids for the first 6 years after breaking my neck, which transitioned to some combo of Oxy or Suboxone for the next 10.
Wow.
So I was on high dose opiates for 18 years because, again, no one was ever seeking what was causing the pain. They were trying to just deal with the pain and the issue that was in front of them. And this is, that in itself taught me a lot about my own business. And, is it the surface level issue that you think it is, or do you need to go deeper and really understand the finances and understand where you're losing money on excess costs that aren't surface level or being reported by the dashboard, right? But it was during those 6 months of trying to get off of opiates and going through some acute withdrawal, and those were long nights. A couple of times, didn't sleep for 3 weeks straight. So you're up with nothing but your thoughts and muscle spasms that are taking place. And up until that point, I had been in the healthcare industry for just as long, right? So 18 years as both a patient and someone that worked for the industry. May that have been directly or indirectly as a consultant, but never thought I was good enough to do it on my own. And I was preparing myself to go under the knife for 14 hours. And they very clearly explained to you that the major side effect of that could be death, right? And you have to sign off on that surgery, that's what you want, and you're willing to take on the risks and all those things. So as you're staring down the barrel of your own mortality, coming off of opiates, and is this all worth it? It really helped to solidify things for me of was I good enough to go off and do what I was doing in the consulting world and create my own model for what I thought healthcare should be. And for me, it crystallized as, well, if you can get through this, what can't you get through? Worrying about payroll is nothing compared to coming off of opiates for 6 months. If we're gonna do this, let's go all in and let's create our own business. And that's what I ended up doing just before going under the knife, was starting my own business. A little bit clear-headed at that point after the withdrawal had cleared. But it was looking back at those 18 years of what was it that, for me as the patient, the 1% of patients in this country that are educated, that know how the insurance works, that knows all the games that are being played, how did it still take me 18 years to find a solution for the pain that I was in? And how did I help everyone else get to that solution faster? How did I help the industry to recognize the value of a voice like mine, rather than thinking they know what the patients are thinking? So that was the crux for the start of my own business, and really the first massive shift in my own thinking of, I was good enough to do it, and I think I have something worthy for the world to see.
Matt, that's powerful.
Thank you.
I mean, I just want to recognize, of course, the resilience that you carry and the respect that a lot of people have for you hearing this story, being physically dependent on painkillers and opioids for 18 years, being able to come out of that and use that as the power and the momentum to carry forward real change, which is, of course, the foundation of what you are doing at Archo Advocacy today. I mean, you've given us a pretty good idea of conceptually what are you doing, why you're doing it, why is it needed. But tell us a little bit more about ARCO in the day-to-day patient advocacy. What does that really look like?
And not to confuse folks, the work I do is in patient advocacy, but it's not direct patient advocacy. We're beginning to create some solutions and tools thanks to AI that allow us to go directly to that really vast market of patients who don't know anything about healthcare until they're already in it. But as I was coming up through the industry and doing consulting work, there is industry patient advocacy as well. And one of the problems that kept digging at the back of my brain was, as a collegiate athlete, there's no scoreboard for these teams, right? They don't know how well they're doing. They can't tell their own company what their impact is to the bottom line of their work. They're not aligned with any of their branded products. So you're creating a pretty bleak picture for for a team within a company that is being looked at as just an expense line, right? And a nice to have, but not a need to have. And I always felt that, if you put it in simplest terms, your sales teams are fishing in a fishbowl. They're the fish that are already there. You're going after the patients that already know that there's a specialist for them, that haven't gotten lost in this maze that we call healthcare in the United States. Those are the low-hanging fruit, ultimately. And your salespeople, may it be the right product or not my discussion, but that is where sales are able to get patients. They can't get to those that don't know help exists. But that's where advocacy comes into play. They bring more fish to the bowl by helping different communities to understand the problems that are holding patients back from getting to the specialist that they need, from some of the mitigating circumstances that got them to that disease in the first place. All of these opportunities that the industry pays on average, let's say, usually it's about $5 to $25 million, depending on the company, to do this advocacy work. But there was, again, not a scorecard or scoreboard to say, this is what good looks like. So I started that market research myself. I had a taste of it as far back as 2016 and didn't think it went deep enough. So I recreated it for ARCO and launched this very in-depth report of what is patient advocacy from the industry's perspective. What is the value of doing it? And what does that work actually look like when executed well with the nonprofit partners that they're all working with? So the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, those are the groups that already have the trust of the patient community. As industry, you can't expect that you are going to get any trust, but go and work with the groups that already have it. Go support them. Go figure out how you can work together to find more patients. Because even today in 2026, the disease state advocacy groups only capture about 30 to 40% of a given patient population by disease state. So there's still a lot to be desired and a lot more people that need to be helped. But this is where, in my mind, as we look towards the future of healthcare and call it Pharma 2030, all that's going to matter is the ability to engage communities, especially with AI and the tools that are deployed to help find those patients in the rough, so to speak, and ensure that they can get access to what they need.
So Matt, it sounds like what you're doing is very different, a very different approach to patient advocacy than has been seen before, a very much needed approach. The pharma and biotech industries are massive. Yeah. So one would think that it's going to take a lot of work to have true impact, a lot of time maybe, but perhaps time won't be as important, if the impact is very significant, right? It'll be noticed.
Exactly right.
So when we look at the approach that you've been taking and really the solutions that you're bringing to patient advocacy, it's only been a few years you've really been in it. Yep. How much have you seen the needle move? Are you starting to see a wave within the industry?
Well, I would say yes and no. And here's the reason. No, because the industry goes in 3-year cycles. Always have. I think they always will until they change the way they do hiring. People move up the ranks in the pharma and biotech spaces because they were good at sales, right? So you get into marketing roles and you're putting commercials out and you think they're great. And you're thinking about the folks that you spoke to as a sales rep, which are the doctors, not the patients. And if you look at any of those commercials today, right? If you are a patient with, I don't care what disease, you're going, that is not anything like my life, right? And that is also where they're damaging their own credibility, right? So people move up in the industry because of them being good at sales. What typically happens and how people get to advocacy is they don't want that sales fight anymore, but they still want to be able to help patients in that very small taste that they got of it in that sales role. So they come to advocacy. My job for the last nearly 4 years has been telling the C-suite of these companies what advocacy is for, what the value is of doing it, how it's going to impact their business at the bottom line, but also a corporate reputation perspective. And when they've all been looking to pull back because of the economic cycles that usually impact them every 3 years, why they need to double or triple down right now. So because of that, we've always seen industry like a pendulum swing away from the patient. And now we've gone through the 3-year swing away, and now we're on that downswing of we're going to start swinging back to patients. However, unlike before, we now have a foundation of market research. We now have a foundation of success and track record of exactly the way that it should be done, that I'm anticipating we're going to see some amazing performance for the customers that we're working with.
It's amazing. It sounds like a very exciting time that you're looking forwards to. And we look at that forward perspective and look forward to a new growth shift. You said the pendulum is starting to swing back. What are you hoping to achieve with this next 3-year cycle?
Well, we've doubled every year that we've been in business. So our goal this year is 2.2 million. But with that, it's also how do we capture the attention inside of a company, not just for those that we're working with in the advocacy function, but how do we make that lasting impression for the rest of the company? Because the adage in advocacy has always been, if you've never been in patient advocacy, there's no amount of slides, as pharma is well known for their PowerPoints. There's no amount of slides that can truly help you understand its impact. If you've been in advocacy, none are necessary. If you've done this work, you don't need anyone to explain it to you. You can just feel it, you get a sense for it. But it's really hard to sit down with the CFO and say, it's a feeling and I can't measure it, right? And I need more money, but I don't know exactly how much I need. And because it's the industry, they think of everything in quarterly and annual budgets because they do nothing more than a year. And we're trying to get them to do patient advocacy, which change doesn't happen for 5 to 10 years in this space. So we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole in the first place. So we are, doing that hard work of creating the economic indices that show, based off of performance today, what does that mean? And I would say that, I'll give credibility to AI, the ability to do some of those number crunching and reporting, and actually now being able to get to a number of $3 to $4 million of bottom line impact for each asset that they have as a company, each product, may they be in commercialization or not, right? The 3 to 4 million can help drive sales of $3 or $4 million. It can help to reduce costs of development by 3 or 4 million, but it's about $3 or $4 million of the right advocacy function aligned with that asset. And when you have on average 8 assets per company, those numbers accelerate pretty quickly, right? So that's the lasting impact that we're trying to have. A lot of our work is, they're looking at cutting us. Can you come in and show our C-suite, our executive leaders, why this work's so important? Or can you help us with our pitch? And can you help us by bringing in that data that you have, as they always say, can you bring in your market research that not only shows our performance and, hey, if it's been poor, it's been poor, but also, we have a secondary report that looks at the industry as a whole to say, what is the average size team and budget, and where do they sit, and what are they being asked to do? So it's not that we can just say you're doing it poorly. We can also look at the inner workings and tell you, are you set up for failure to begin with? And unfortunately, yes, a lot of the times they are.
Matt, what you do through patient advocacy. Lasting and noticeable change takes 5 years plus. Within pharma and biotech, you mentioned they're only looking a maximum of 12 years forwards.
12
And the
months.
type of 12 months, my
Yeah.
apologies, misspoke there. The type of legacy thinking that is ingrained in these industries as well, focusing
Yeah.
on the revenue, on the bottom line, on the sales.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like there's a massive disconnect here that you have to breach. I mean,
There
how are you
is.
planning on doing that? I mean, you've been doubling year over year. That's
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. Do you have any concerns that, you may start running into a wall when it comes to just how people are thinking with these industries? How are you going to overcome this?
Number one, resilience.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to back off. And number two, the economic and political cycle is aligning perfectly in the United States, right? So right now, Wall Street's got plenty of cash. They're flush with cash at this point. Main Street is not. And they're looking at, how do I save money? What's the right thing for me? So patients are now, paying more attention in healthcare and paying more attention and noticing that, since the Affordable Care Act, things have only gotten more expensive, right? While United Healthcare's stock has gone up 600%. Something's wrong here. So we're hitting this perfect storm of actual alignment from the pharma and biotech industry to the desires of the patient community, which is, let me and my doctor decide what's best for me, and everyone else get out of the way. That's all that pharma wants, right? The problem is when you have politics that come into play, industry will never be able to accomplish that mission on its own. It needs the patients. It needs the physicians. It needs the nonprofits that are fighting on behalf of patients on Capitol Hill. And we're helping to build those coalitions. So there's a lot of arms and tentacles to what we're doing right now, but I help run a nonprofit called We the Patients, which is helping to educate the patient community about the healthcare policy issues of our day at the state level. There are state opportunities to tackle right now that benefit everybody, but also, not just, when I say everybody, I mean all patients, but they also would help benefit the industry if accomplished successfully. And that's just removing, or reducing, for example, prior authorization. I'm not saying to use the wrong product on a patient. I'm saying that there is an onerous amount of paperwork that is expected to be done for free by a doctor when they've already made the decision that that's the right product for the patient. Why does the insurance company get to come in and, by claiming they're an insurance company, by law, they're not allowed to practice medicine, but they can tell a doctor what medication you can get against their wishes? Something's got to change here. And that's how we're coming at it. We're coming at it from all sides. And it's helped to bring more credibility to our business. And by me telling my story and helping people to recognize that I'm not just coming at this as an industry shill, right? I'm coming at this as a patient who's been on that end, that understands what late nights or no nights of sleep feel like. And then my wife as a caregiver for me of what that onerous journey was, and bringing all of those voices to the forefront and helping patients to recognize that just because they got sick, their opinion is no less impactful.
The situation you're in right now, it's like a David against Goliath, right? You've got a stone in your sling. You've got a giant that you've got to take down.
Who won?
David won. He certainly did.
Yeah.
And there's no concern there from me with your resilience, your positioning, your passion for what needs to change and how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Archo Advocacy today, founder-led, small and mighty, and you're not alone. There's something you mentioned a little bit earlier as well, AI coming into play a massive role in not just how you operate, but how it is that you can have an impact. Matt, tell us a little bit more here. Where is AI starting to come in to provide you with an additional edge on your mission?
So you referenced, for example, my TED Talk. I did what I thought was going to be a fly under the radar TEDx that got, in 7 months, a little over 1 million views, right? Which showed me that it matters and people need help in the United States. It's the sad state of affairs that we have here is that if you get sick, more than likely you need someone to explain to you what is happening and why you're going where you're going and why these different entities are calling you, right? It shows the value of patient advocacy. But at the same time, the common question from patients was, where do I find one? And when you can vibe code a website that is now pulling together resources that are in disparate corners of the internet and pull them together under one roof, already driven by a TED Talk that got over 1 million views, you're able to quickly and powerfully give a new solution to that patient body. So we did that. The Advocate Bridge is our first foray under a nonprofit that I also started most recently called the Empowered Patient Foundation, because I wanted to be able to build tools for patients and not charge them for them. Because I know what it's like to be a patient. You have enough to worry about cost-wise. Now also know that there's an avenue that will help you, but it be a cost blocker. No, I couldn't live with myself by doing that. So we're going the nonprofit route for that part of our vertical, so to speak, of our business, which is all about how do we serve your neighbor next door and help them understand this, as I like to explain it. Healthcare is the Home Depot you got dropped into. You have no idea what you're shopping, what you need at all. There's no one to help you, and there's no prices listed anywhere. So how do we help somebody navigate that? Those are the tools that we're using AI to help us build and navigate. And it's been amazing to watch even other companies come up in this space and help fight back on prior authorization, for example. There's a great company called Claimable. That's exactly what they do. They use AI to fight back against AI being used by the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. So, every patient has the right to an appeal. They also have the right to an external appeal if they so choose. Unfortunately, in the United States, only 1% of denials are appealed. When they are appealed, nearly 60% are appealed in favor of the patient.
Wow.
But the word is not gotten out because, of course, the insurance companies don't want you to know that. So it's on, the way I see it, it's on me to get that education, to get the how out to patients.
Now, how you're talking about AI makes it very clear as to the benefit that it can have, not just for you and the growth of your business, but the real impact on the end user and the patients in this situation as well. In the world of healthcare, there's a lot of concerns around AI, right? This is, of course, a very personal industry, an individual's health and well-being, right? You mentioned that insurance companies here are using AI almost to, in a negative way when it comes to the access to health and insurance claims for individuals who need it. So when we look at both sides of that spectrum, there's positive use cases, there's unfortunate situations where it's being used against people's well-being. When we look at where AI should and shouldn't be used in your perspective, because with what you're doing it now is incredible, do you have any concerns, or where would you draw the line on where I shouldn't be involved in patient advocacy?
My only concern, and let me say this first. As you think about AI use by the insurance companies, they are doing their job.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Let me start by saying this. Murder, bad. But if you look at Luigi Mangione, for example, that murdered the United Healthcare CEO, that is someone that did not know that he had the right to an external appeal. That was being denied again and again and again, usually by an AI algorithm, right? They want to remove the human in the loop in those circumstances because when you see another human suffering, you're going to give in. These businesses, which the insurance companies are, right? They're publicly traded companies. It's their job to report to their shareholders, not to patients. And we can argue how that needs to shift, right? But they are doing their job, and we need to help them do their job better. There's definitely ways that we can do that, and I think AI is a big component for them. My concern with AI, the healthcare space, is removing the patient voice altogether for a synthetic patient voice. By gathering patient stories and gathering data, we have seen some marketers, and don't get me wrong, if you're doing it to test messaging, use it for round 1 and 2, but make sure you get a patient or a group of patients to give you feedback before you take it to market. That unfortunately has not been the case. They settle for the LLMs filled with patient stories of patients within that disease state and what they face on a daily basis, and are getting their checkbox that, yep, we heard from patients on this, it's going to work. That's just never going to be valuable, and it's not going to work in the long run. So ensuring that we never remove the human in the loop from that is huge in healthcare. But we've seen amazing benefits, even down to the patient with their doctor in an appointment. And, patients may not be aware because it's part of those HIPAA, sign-off forms that no one reads and everyone just signs. But now in most doctors' offices, AI is listening in on your conversation with your doctor to push your doctor down certain rabbit holes that they might not have heard you say. And to ping them and tell them, hey, they had said X, why don't you ask why, right? Now we can have deeper conversations, because in the physician's world, they're being asked to see more patients with less time. The average patient gets to see their doctor for 7 minutes in the United States. AI helps to empower that conversation, and we've built a tool to put AI in the patient's hands too, and be able to record that session. And listen, if you get a diagnosis sitting in the doctor's office that you weren't expecting, whatever words are coming out of your doctor's mouth after that, you're really not hearing. Mm-hmm. So why not have that recording? Why not have a tool that can help to surface acronyms and, laboratory results speak and medical jargon for a patient, right? Part of our market research assesses health literacy, which is, what is your reading level in healthcare? And the more chronic a condition, like diabetes, COPD, heart disease, the health literacy rate in the United States is down at the 2nd grade reading level. I don't know about you, but I don't know any physician that dumbs it down to the 2nd grade level. This is where AI is a massive opportunity, and why, in my opinion, ChatGPT ran with GPT Health so fast. It's now, I believe, overtaken Google in use in understanding complex diagnoses. Mm-hmm. And we see other tools out there. You need to have an NPI number to be able to utilize open evidence, which is all of the medical journals for a provider to actually be able to use for themselves and say, hey, I saw these symptoms. Help me understand what the diagnosis could be or what the problem is. So you're now able to empower that rural provider that has this case of something they've never seen because it's a 1 in a million thing. Now they have tools in their arsenal to help that patient.
Matt, this conversation has been incredibly insightful for myself, and I hope for the audience as well, especially around the real value that AI can have for patient advocacy, even just empowering physicians as well to make sure that they're delivering the best help to their patients at the end of the day.
As I will always say, you just can't remove the human voice from that discussion. You can't allow AI to overtake the patient's story and the patient's lived experience. That is the biggest thing that I'm trying to instill in providers and speaking to med students right now on the value of that patient's lived experience, not just to help them be heard, because it's ultimately for patients to understand your doctor doesn't know what you don't tell them. So that patient's story is so valuable. You don't know where it's going to take you. And for someone like me, it was the difference between continuing chronic opiates or getting the right surgery to get out of pain and get off of them. It was truly life-changing just by allowing me to share my story.
Matt, the growth shift that you went through is the foundation for everything you're doing today, the passion that you have and the purpose that you're in pursuit of. For other business owners listening to this podcast right now, or other leaders, what would be the single most important lesson that you'd share with them who are navigating their own shifts?
My biggest lesson in all of this is your mess becomes your message. Whatever you've gone through, whatever shit, as you look back, that you stepped in was all meant to help empower the person you are today, to help those that you once were. That's the way that I look at my story. It's the way I see when true founders are in alignment with their calling. That's usually where it is, right? That's where the passion really comes into play, and the late nights don't matter because they're living in alignment with what they felt called to do. And identify that. Take a look at your life. If you haven't started a business yet and you have that itch, take a look at, is it in alignment with what you've been through in your life? Because I can guarantee you there's someone that's willing to pay for your services because you have the experience to go with it. So that would be my biggest message, along with don't doubt yourself. You may be holding yourself back from a massive opportunity to change your own world and to change the lives of your family at the same time.
Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story and your insights with the audience today. For anyone listening who might like to keep up with ARCO, what would be the best way to find you and to get in touch?
Arco.io is our website. You can find all of our socials there as well, but you can also go to matttoresco.com. You can get some more insights into some of those free tools if you're a patient that's seeking those as well.
Excellent. Matt, thanks again for joining us on the Growth Shift today.
Thanks so much, David. Appreciate it.
Another powerful conversation on the Growth Shift. If you, like our guests, are ready to turn your expertise into a predictable, scalable growth engine, one that eliminates the grind of prospecting and enhances your high-value relationships, then it's time to connect with Valentix. We are not a marketing agency. We are your strategic growth partner, building intelligent systems that ensure your client acquisition is predictable, not dependent on chance. To see how our AI-powered frameworks can free up your time and fill your calendar with decision makers, visit valentix.io. Thank you for joining us on the Growth Shift. We'll see you next time.